and 5, a 4,
hate
a
all of
3, a 2, 1. This is the Alt-Tab-Me pod... Really? I fucked up the intro? Oh my god.
This is the Alt-Tab-Me podcast.
This is the AltTabMe.com podcast. This week is podcast number 7, where we will be talking about What Profession Should You Play, Part 1. So we're going to break this down into 3 parts. We're going to talk about the professions Engineer, Elementalist, and Guardian today. We're going to bring it to you in a way of focusing less on balance and more on what each profession does. How it plays, what type of gamer would be attracted to it, what we've experienced in the betas, but mostly focusing on beta weekend 3 so that we have the most accurate information up until now. I want to cover something in the beginning of the podcast that I always forget to do at the end. These podcasts are live every Monday, weekly, at 5:15 p.m. Eastern Time at alttabme.com/live. We then push the podcast to YouTube on Wednesdays. So if you want to check it out live, if you want to ask some questions in the chat channel below, you can. So hopefully we'll see you next week. Anyway, let's talk about the Elementalist, because it's the closest out of everything we have there to other games in terms of looking at it for face value and being like, oh, I'm going to play the mage.
Mage, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
why don't you lead us off, Damien? Tell us a little bit about the Elementalist and how it plays.
Okay, so you know the basics with all the classes have their different depending on the weapons that you have equipped. Your first 5 skills change depending on you got ranged and close and things like that. The biggest difference between the other professions and the Elementalist is that the Elementalist only can use one weapon set at a time, same as the Engineer. So they can only have one set equipped instead of 2, which they can switch between. But the trade-off to that is you've got 4 attunements. So you've got fire, water, earth, and air. As these 4 different attunements that you can switch between at any time during combat to gain 5 different skills based on that weapon set.
And call out, Captain Planet!
By your powers combined.
Exactly by your powers combined. And I know when I first started playing one, I really struggled with this idea of I've got to keep switching between my attunements, because you've got some of these spells. I was using the staff mostly because I really like a lot of the AoE effects. So the staff for the Elementalist is basically a lot of area effects. It's a lot of status effects on those areas. It's putting down a lot of control as well as a lot of damage. But everything on that staff is an AoE. You know, like the basic auto attack fireball is a AoE fireball. The lightning bolt thing is a bolt that bounces between targets. The earth one is a line of damage. You know, the water one splashes and heals in an area as well as does damage to the target. Like everything is an AoE on the staff.
So let's pull back though for like 2 seconds here. Let's talk about. So we've got the Elementalist. It casts spells. It gets stabs. Now, is it the mage archetype? Does it fall into the mage archetype? Like, if you've played another game, and you know what, to be honest, I'm not going to reference WoW once today. Haha, bitches. If you've played Ultima Online or EverQuest or Guild Wars 1, is it similar to those classes?
Yeah. It fulfills that ranged control DPS archetype that's usually attributed to the mage in RPG games, in MMOs. It's that type of character. You know, you've got a lot of effects that let you control the battlefield, as well as a lot of effects that let you do just insane amounts of damage to your enemy.
Is there a button here somewhere? Because there should be.
There
should definitely be a but.
What do you mean?
But The Elementalist does not
Yeah.
play like any of those games. If you're expecting to jump in there and
that's
be
right.
like, I'm going to cast some fireball and throw it at your ass, it is not going to work. Guild Wars 2, all of your spells can be done on the run. So that changes your entire makeup altogether. So you're not just standing in the corner being like, Rain of Fire. You're like, well, actually, Rain of Fire, you are kind of stuck in one place. But whatever, that was a bad example. But are you doing a cat? What are you doing? Making fun of me? No, but yeah, you are running around. You're always on the move. And then the amazing thing is that, as he said before, you can only have one weapon set equipped at a time. So staff is probably the closest thing you're going to get to an archetype mage type character from any other game. After that, just it doesn't happen anymore. So you can then equip.
After that, all bets are off.
You can equip 2 daggers, and this is like a melee caster class where you are just in the range of your skills are literally 600 meters, something like that, or less. You don't have any big area of effect fireball casting. You have like, my daggers are on fire and they're hitting you. I don't know much of the Elementalist spells specifically, but I know that when you have the daggers equipped, you're right in their face.
Yeah, the biggest difference, there are some AoE effects for the daggers. The biggest difference is that the AoEs, instead of being targeted on the ground at some distance away from you, they are centered on you. So if you're not in the middle of it, your AoEs are doing nothing.
Which I find it's really difficult when you're playing
AoEs, which are point-blank AoEs.
It's really hard when you're playing a caster class, especially a caster class that is extremely squishy, to be right in the middle of battle casting these spells. It's something that your brain doesn't quite pick up on right away when you think caster. So it's interesting. And then you've got
get used to that.
Then you've got the focus and the dagger, and that's more of a and the scepter. Sorry, focus and the scepter, and you've got more of a mid-range attack. So the Elementalist basically is split. Instead of being able to go from close range to far off range, like say the Mesmer, where you can have a sword in one of your weapon sets, and then you can have a staff or a greatsword in the other weapon set, and you can swap between the two. So now you have close range and far range. The Elementalist only gets that one set, so you have to pick kind of what you're going to be doing and stick to it. So if you're the staff, you're long range. If you're the focus, you're mid range. If you're the dagger, you're up in their face, which plays very different to a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's almost like, and I tried all of these out during the beta weekends, the different combinations, and it's like playing a different class, because all the skills are wildly different for a start, and then because you've got a completely different play style, it's a whole paradigm shift within that profession to play it in a completely different manner. So this as Tristan said, the staff is your long range artillery sort of, I am a living cannon and I will blow your face off kind of archetype, which is the pretty classic mage. Most people, when they think of mage, they think giant fireball spells, meteors raining down from the sky, just death and destruction coming out of their hands and going every which way. The scepter does a little bit of a combination of sort of single target control as well as some AoE stuff as well. So you've got things like the focus gives you a firewall, which you can put down, which will then, it creates just a line of fire in front of you. If people run through it, they'll take damage. But it's also, and we touched on this in other podcasts, it's also a combo field. So if Bruce is hanging out on his ranger with his longbow, and he just pumps a rapid shot through that wall of fire, then all of his arrows are on fire. He's doing more damage. You're doing more damage. You've got this sort of deterrent in front of you that's making them go, maybe I don't want to run through that because it's going to set me on fire, and that's not cool. So you've got a lot of sort of control it's just a lot closer than it is with the staff. The staff is stay away from me. I don't want you anywhere near me. You know.
And it's for the world v worlders that like to stand on the walls and just rain fire down on the masses.
Yeah.
So
Just rain doom upon
now,
you.
Go ahead,
I
Bruce.
got a quick little question for you though. When you were saying in the certain archetypes of like the long range, middle range, did you tend to favor one attunement to the other? I know that. I mean, you have so many more spells on the Elementalist than you do on any other. Do you tend to stick to certain attunements for certain weapons than to go through all four?
Did we explain the attunements yet? Like fully?
No,
I
you
touched
want
it briefly.
No.
Why don't we talk about the attunements real quick?
I thought we already mentioned the 4 archetypes. So
Instead of
I mentioned them.
So instead of the switching of the weapons, I'm gonna retouch on it again just in case. Instead of the switching of the weapons, you are literally, if you're staff, or if you're a dagger, or if you're a focus, whatever that is. Oh wow, there's light, and let there be light. You have 4 attunements: water, and we did the whole Captain Planet thing. But you get water, earth, fire, and air.
Air.
And you can switch between those 4 all the time, but by switching between those 4, it gives you 5 new skills for that weapon that you have.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, continue.
Yeah. So. I'll answer your question, but I'll just explain the attunement thing a little bit better. So when you switch attunements, you trigger a global cooldown on your other attunements, so you can't just spam the F1, F4 buttons and just keep switching attunements because it won't let you. But what it will also do is the attunement that you have just left will go onto a slightly longer cooldown. So you can't I can't go, I'm in fire, I throw a rain of fire on your face, I switch to air, I hurl out a giant lightning bolt, and then immediately switch back to fire. You can't do that. It won't, because the cooldown on fire will still be coming off. It will be back pretty soon after that, but it'll still be going, and you've got to be aware of that. So you can't just... it adds that level of skill, I guess, to the profession, that you've got to understand where your skills are and how long it's going to take for them to come back and that sort of thing. And there are traits that you can purchase which will speed up that cooldown.
Okay.
But to answer Bruce's question, the answer is yes. I did find myself sort of hanging out in certain attunements more than others, but then I realized that was actually a giant mistake. Because I mean, you can sort of super focus on one attunement and just max out your trait points in one of the element trees, because the 5 trait lines that all the professions have, 4 of them for the Elementalist are the elements, so they've got fire, earth, water, and air traits, and then they've got arcane, which is the last one. Arcane's particularly interesting because it's the one that encourages you to switch attunements a lot, because it's the one that actually gives you the reduced cooldown on attunement switching. But with the staff, I think I spent a lot of time in fire, mainly because the 5 skill is Rain of Fire, and Rain of Fire is amazing because it's giant AoE death.
Well, it seems like
really,
all the
really
attunements are very
rates.
much segregated to do specific things. For instance, fire is more DPS.
Yes.
Earth is more control. Water is more about healing, and electricity. Sorry, air, I say electricity because when I see people go into air, it's just like ride the lightning, lightning whip. I mean, it's always electricity in my head.
Yeah.
But that seems to be more about defense.
Well, both air and earth sort of pull double duty as both utility and damage. So there are a number of effects on the earth attunement which will impose conditions on your opponent, things like cripple and bleed, particularly for earth, which are fantastic conditions to be applying to your opponents. Whereas air is more about stun and blind. So there's sort of specific conditions get applied by particular attunements. So air is particularly stun and blind, which is very nice for supporting your friends. And like, oh, that guy's he's about to swing out with a massive attack. Well, I'll just blind him so that attack will miss, and then he does no doubt. He just wastes his time with that attack, which is really, really useful. Some of those abilities don't really come into their own in big scale battles, like in World v World. Like if you're fighting 20 guys, it's kind of hard to figure out where to focus things like that single target blind and that single target stun and that bleed and that sort of stuff. But certainly in SPVP, you'll find that that's actually a lot easier, especially because you're usually having sort of 2v2s and 3v3s and occasionally 8v8s if you're getting the full team in there, and that's a lot easier to manage in terms of targets.
Well, which brings up a good point. It's like you've got the Elementalist, who is it's very complicated. So, but it works in many different fields. It works in SPVP in specific ways. It works in World v World in different ways. It works in PvE in different ways. What is the learning curve on this class? Like, would you recommend the Elementalist to someone just starting in MMO in general?
I wouldn't, because probably along with I would say probably the Engineer and the Mesmer, it probably has the steepest learning curve of any class in the game, or any profession. Sorry, to use their phrase. The learning the different attunements, the time it takes to unlock all the different skills on each of those attunements. Because as you remember, you've got to unlock all your weapon skills, but the Elementalist doesn't have to do that once. The Elementalist has to do that 4 times
per weapon
for each once for each attunement. So it's per attunement per weapon. So that's a lot of skills.
It's
to
80
unlock.
skills,
That
I
takes
think,
a lot
right?
of time. Yeah, well, it's 20 skills per weapon, and then you've got dagger, and then scepter focus. So that's 60. Taking it out to 3 different combinations. And then you've got the underwater stuff, where you've got the trident is your underwater weapon. So there's another 20 skills.
Oh,
so that's
wow.
80 in total.
I didn't know underwater was also attunement. I
I
didn't know that.
forgot about underwater.
Oh, yeah. So you've got, including
crap.
I didn't know that either.
including underwater, there's 80 skills to unlock on the weapons for the Elementalist.
Wow, man.
Like I tried it. I over the first 2 beta weekends, that was one of the things that I wanted to do. I was like, I want to see all the skills. I want to see what everything does, and to unlock everything on every weapon took ages. Because,
Well, I mean, hey,
especially when you're going into.
At least the Elementalist isn't boring. I mean, there's something
Yeah.
for everyone on the Elementalist. I do know when I played it, it reminded me a lot of, and I think I said this in another podcast briefly, was that it reminded me a lot of a StarCraft 2 game, where switching attunements and having to micromanage so hard on your class profession made it very difficult for my brain to comprehend it. I'm not good at those clicky, fast-paced, micromanage everything, send 5 Zergs over there, send 12 over there, and also build 50 while I'm doing it. I honestly felt like that class was much more built for something like that, someone that can multitask very well. And if you can multitask, and if you can switch attunements and memorize exactly where every spell is, it's one of the most powerful professions in the game. I'm going to stop saying class. I'm going to stop saying class. Profession. But it really is. It's one of the most powerful ones. In PvP specifically, we're starting to see some amazing combinations that are taking advantage of an Elementalist in the group.
Yeah, it's as Tristan said, high skill cap, because you've got to learn how to micromanage those attunements and knowing where your skills are and knowing how to utilize them, and then also not forgetting that you've got utility skills as well. as you level, you unlock your utility skills and your elite skill, and you've got a heal in there as well. Like you've got to remember that you've got 5 other skills sitting on the other side of your action bar, as well as your weapon skills. And I found when I played it, I would just forget about my utility skills. I'd be like, oh, that's right, I can summon a golem. Boom, and then you'd be doing something else.
I was really excited. I was
really
like, that's what I'm going to play. That's what I went into Guild Wars 2 Beta Weekend 1 going, I am going to play the Elementalist. Mind you, I had the impression that I could heal. You can heal, but you cannot heal significantly. And
you probably have, out of any class, they probably have the strongest consistent heals, especially if you're on the staff, because
I don't know, man. The Guardian has that new spin around in the air like you're being blasted in the sky, 2,500 health to everybody in the area spell that can be cast every 15 seconds.
I mean, that's good, but you've got on water attunement on the staff, you've got the one skill is an auto attack that splash heals, so it heals in an AoE. You've got a skill, you've got the 5 skill, which is basically the opposite of Rain of Fire, and it's literally just rain, but it heals in an AoE as well. You've got Water Trident, which is a ground targeted effect, which also heals. So you've got just on the staff, on the water attunement, you've got 3 different abilities which can give heal. And then if you trait into the water tree, you can gain effects like when you switch to water, a splash of water sort of launches out of you, and it gives regeneration to the people around you. So you sort of, you have some water and let it regenerate you. So they in the different trait lines, there are effects that you can have trigger every time you switch to that attunement. So, like, if you switch to fire, so you have a little explosion fire AoE, and the earth one is some ground spikes up and they get a bleed and things like that. And the water one is a regeneration effect on your allies.
So what?
It's
good.
It's not a healer. I need to stress that. It's not. You cannot be, I'm the healing class, because there's none of that. You need to get rid of that idea.
In any profession,
it doesn't work.
You've said it before, yeah.
No.
In any profession at all, you can't be a
Well, you'll waste a spot. You'll waste the spot if you are only focused. Because I went into the weekend, this beta week. No, I went into the stress test, this last stress test, as a guardian just to try out the new healing spells, and I just was holding the staff. I wasn't really spec much, and I was just trying out the healing stuff just to heal. And I was literally wasting a spot for my team because I would get a heal off. Sure, it would help them for a little bit, but then they would die in about 10 seconds later. 2,500 damage is not hard to dish out in this game.
No, and the thing with the healing is that healing gives you breathing room. Really, when you're healing somebody, or you're getting off a heal effect, you're really just giving time for their own heal to come off cooldown so they can use it. That's really what you're doing.
Yeah.
You really just, it's like the quick patch job, so that to give them time for their thing to come off cooldown, or for them to get through that dot effect that's on them that's causing crazy amounts of damage, that you sort of give them a little bit of a patch up through that. But you can't be, I'm just going to stand here and heal you the whole time.
So with the idea of, let's keep this, we could obviously theory craft for days on all this stuff. Reeling it in a little bit. What's unique about this profession for people that are just tuning in and want to see and want to try out the Ellie? What is the unique aspect of the Ellie?
Okay, the biggest thing that's unique from different games, and also unique between the professions in this game, is the attunements. Is the fact that you've got more skills on a single weapon than anybody else does in the entire game. Just hands down. You have more choice. You have more options available to you in terms of, there's this there's this philosophy in the game that I've seen, which is very much like there is always something you should be able to do. And the Elementalist to me seems like the best example of there is always something you can be doing. There is always an attunement you can be switching to, an effect you can be throwing out, a condition you can be applying, a boon you can be applying, a random little heal there, a bit of damage over here. There's always something to do, and it's like the ADHD of classes, professions. It's sort of okay, I'm doing this, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing, and you just sort of, it's just on. You can't fall asleep playing this class. And I guess so. The unique thing is it's the quote unquote mage of Guild Wars 2. This is not the mage you've seen before.
These are not the mages you were thinking of.
Yeah, like this isn't that mage that goes, oh, okay, I can't do anything except stand back here and do damage.
And conjure bread.
It's not true.
And make portals.
Yeah.
And
give me water, damn
and
it.
conjure bread and water and polymorph
I need my
things
strudels.
and stuff like that.
Here, let me interject because I know that this is going to go right into this. Pros, quickly, are the Elementalist is very, very resourceful. It has a ton of utility. You can do a whole lot of it. You've basically got a little bit of every single profession in this one profession if you so wish to have it. It has a pretty good selection of weapons. It has the staff, it has daggers, it has the scepter, and it has the focus. You get to wear the light armor. That might be a pro for some people because they might like the style.
Yep.
What are some other pro things that you might think of, Bruce? You seem like
the
you wanted
pros.
to...
The biggest pro is versatility.
Versatility, but also the conjure weapon mechanic that they have is pretty unique.
It
a
is
lot
very
of the
unique.
flame axes. Not only do you drop an axe for yourself and automatically have it equipped, which gives you even more abilities, but you also drop one for a teammate, so you can have two flame axes doing the same thing. So all of a sudden you have you're throwing axes, you're putting down area lines, and just a lot of those tools that you can get for ability skills. Very unique. It's some stuff that you will not find, and it's just a different type of support that you would have with having an Elementalist around, if they choose to have that ability.
Yeah, I'd like to note, though, before anybody says, oh, well, it just drops weapons, it summons it sounds kind of gimmicky. Those weapons actually do serious damage. They do decent damage. Like, there's a lot of Elementalists sit on the walls and will spawn ice bows for people who don't necessarily have really strong range stuff. So when you're in keep fights, World v. World, which is what I love, you can sit there and you get, 25 ability uses, or 2 minutes, whichever comes first, I believe, with the bow, and you can rain down some good damage with that. So it's not like it's actually a good utility. It's good support utility. It's not a gimmicky sort of thing like, oh, I got an ice bow, this looks cool. It actually works. So
if you're, I think another pro also is if you're really into World v. World and you like to sit and defend the keeps, you're not, and even attacking. But if you like to be in the back lines, if you like to be in the back lines, the staff for the Elementalist is one of the most fun weapons with spells in World v. World, hands down. I got in there once, and I was able to just stand on a wall, and the numbers and the damage you see are very rewarding. If you like doing damage and you like seeing a lot of numbers and a lot of damage, a lot of people getting hurt, that is the class, the fucking profession to play.
The staff in World v. World will make you feel like a god. You will just feel like this unstoppable just engine of destruction, and woe betide any who cross your path, because you will just tear them a new one with magic, and it's awesome.
All right. I do want to interject here for a second, and just real quick for the people that are thinking like, oh my god, this is an amazing class, this is so awesome. They do get countered relatively easily, though, especially with the one weapon set. With having the one weapon set with the staff as the AoE, if you see Elementalist with a staff, you know pretty much how to counter them. You need to stay up close to them, you need to get them in close range, and they can't switch out of that AoE ability. I just want to throw that out there for the people that are thinking like, oh my god, they can do everything. But you do get kind of stuck in that subset as well. If you keep them in combat, and they have that, they're only going to be able to do so much to you because a lot of it's ground targeted. And if you're chasing after them, you're going to be out of that ground targeted. If you see a double dagger elementalist, keep your range, pew pew away, and they're going to have a hard time catching up to you. Just some of the fast, quick counters that you have against the Elementalist, you really need to keep a focus on what they have equipped and what attunement they're in. And you know exactly what they can do, and they're going to get locked into that pretty quick.
Just so you know, though, since we're not on cons yet, Bruce, God, the LE...
I've been holding on to that for so long, I had to get it out.
Well, as a pro of... as a different side of what Bruce said, is that when you're in the staff, when you have the staff and you're attuned with all your different skills for the staff, those skills, there's a skill on almost every attunement that lets you pull back, get out of battle, retreat. If it's one of them in fire makes you retreat while making a flame of, a line of fire in front of you. So it boosts you back to get the distance, and it also helps those in front of you that are, plinking, and they can shoot through that firewall then. So there are defenses. But yes, cons on an Elementalist. It is the hardest, if not... Yeah, it's probably one of the hardest if the Engineer isn't this, and the Mesmer aren't the hardest. But it's one of the hardest professions to pick up. It is... you're stuck in one... close range, mid range, or far range, depending on what the weapon you pick is. You can't weapon swap, which is directly related to that, and you are a little bit limited on the amount of weapons that you can pick. You don't have as many weapons as some of the other professions. A lot of the professions literally have every single weapon except for maybe one that they can use, and you are extremely squishy. So those are my cons.
Exactly.
Anything to add to that?
Yeah. Yeah, you'll have less health,
survivability,
and less armor than your engineers and your thieves and your rangers and than everything else, basically. The only other classes that have the only other profession that has the same level of squishiness as you is the Mesmer, because the Necromancer has a whole another level of health and defense.
7 lives.
Pretty awesome.
Except the Mesmer gets to disappear into 1,000 clones. So you're like, shit, which one is it?
Yeah.
But that's another podcast.
You do have that. So
we'll get there.
Yeah, the Elementalist does have a lot of escape tools, and all of those control tools can be really good close range.
I think Elementalists are going to be first targeted in SPVP too, because they do so much damage, especially if they're if you see an Elementalist with 2 daggers, you best take that guy down quickly before he gets in the middle of all your guys defending a point, because he will just do an AoE of doom.
You can't leave him alone for any length of time.
The hurt's going to come.
Yeah.
So, all right, well,
definitely.
I think that sums it up for the Elementalist. If you have any more questions, we are more than happy to answer more questions or concerns on our forums, alttabme.com. We have sections for every profession. We have constant talks about builds and theory crafting and stuff like that. So feel free to come along and chat. You don't have to be in the guild to chat on the forums, so you can come and ask any questions. You can also ask questions for next podcast, and we might throw them into our Q&A session. Or if you're watching it live, we will definitely take them. Cool.
Yep.
So, the next profession we will talk about is the Engineer. I'm bringing up the Engineer for a specific reason. I believe that it is right up there with difficulty level as the Elementalist. So I think while we're talking about difficult class A, we should talk about difficult class B. As well, the Engineer is the first profession of its kind. there really is no archetype for what it is in any other game. Sure, there's stuff that, you know, you get flamethrowers and some stuff. You get utility stuff like that, like heal med packs and other stuff. But the engineer really has a very specific Guild Wars 2 overall, you know?
Feel to it, yeah.
So, Zachus is our resident engineer guru, so I'm going to let him start this one off by telling us, you know, tell us a little bit about the class in general.
Okay, well, the engineer is similar to the Elementalist in that it does not have weapon swapping, and it has a similar sort of mechanic to the attunements. Instead of attunements, engineer's got his trusty tool belt. Engineer's got his trusty tool belt, which he uses, and he has different types of kits that he can take with him to basically use a different myriad of there's weapon kits, there's device kits, he's got elixirs like potions, and he's also got turrets that he can place on the ground to do a bunch of different things, different effects. He's very big on conditions and such things like that. For example, you got you have the weapon kits. You can carry a flamethrower, you can carry an elixir gun, and then you have for device kits you can carry a grenade kit with all kinds of different types of grenades that all do different things. Control anything like that, different types of damage, bomb kits, stuff like that. And again, your elixirs are very helpful. Engineer's sort of like a group. Well, they're all geared towards group play, but the engineer is really sort of like a big support class. You can play it in different ways, obviously. You're not pigeonholed, but it's big on support and control. And the elixirs come in with that, and also your turrets. I mean, you have a net turret to stop people, you have damage turrets, etc., healing turrets. So it's sort of like what you would think is like, not to compare it to a different class in the game, I would have to say maybe Shaman in WoW. Sort of like support, it's got turrets, kind of totems, I don't know. But if you were thinking like just general, like what it was an engineer, it's definitely like a mad scientist. He kind of pieces everything together. He has all kinds of different tools he can choose from to do all kinds of nefarious things on the battlefield and whatnot. So it's a fun class to play with all the different options.
So I've tried.
It's like I said,
I tried the engineer.
Good.
And I got completely confused with. Like, I leveled up my skills. So let's see, what are the weapons that are available on the engineer again?
The engineer can use rifle, pistols, and a shield. Okay. So he can go rifle, dual pistols, or pistol and shield.
So this is where I get really confused.
For his weapons.
Like, you've got an engineer. Let's say I decide I'm going to go with a rifle, okay? And I'm running around with a rifle, and I'm like, pow, 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 you know? I'm leveling up my skills. How do I get a flamethrower? How do I get these turrets? How do I get these weird elixirs and stuff? Like, where are those? I don't understand. I still don't quite understand how that works. Because with the other professions, you literally weapon swap, but there's no flamethrowers dropping in the world. So where are you getting these flamethrowers, elixir guns, and all these weird things? Explain that to me.
Yeah, I know you only played for like 10 minutes, so where the Elementalist has everything based on their attunements and the different weapons, the engineer has all his tool belt skills based on his utility skill slots. That's where they come into play. So you need to get skill points to unlock your utility skills, like we talked about in the beginning podcast, and that's where all his utility skills are different things. It's flamethrower's a utility skill, elixir gun's a utility skill, and it takes up a utility slot. Now, when you get those and you use them, you click the utility button, you swap, it switches your weapon bar. Oh. So if I have a flamethrower and I'm using a rifle, I'll press whatever 7 and swap, and I'll pull out my trusty flamethrower, and you'll get 5 different abilities unique to the flamethrower that has to do with control and whatnot, and fire, lots of fire. So that's the way that works. It's similar to the Elementalist, but it's different in that it's all focused on the utility skills. That's where you get your crazy diversity from, and your toolkits basically. So, okay. Is what they call it, the tool belt.
So if you're using the flamethrower, right? You use the utility skill for the flamethrower. Is it similar to the Elementalist's conjured weapons? Do you lose it after you use it a certain amount of times? Is there a timer on it?
No.
So once you click that, you have the flamethrower for good?
Yes, that is your flamethrower. You have the flamethrower until you decide to swap out of it, go back to your rifle or whatever else you have on your utility belt. Obviously, there's cooldowns for the abilities, and there's also, I don't know the specific time, but there's a short cooldown when you switch out of the flamethrower for the utility skill to switch back into it. It's negligible, though. It's not really that long. So, because it's a core, those things are basically the class. That's what makes up the class. Like the Elementalist has the attunements with the cooldown. The Engineer has flamethrowers, turrets, elixirs. That's what he does. So,
gotcha.
It's a weapon. It's a permanent weapon, is what it is.
Okay. So, what would you say? What do you think the learning curve is on the Engineer?
I would definitely put the Engineer up there, right near the Elementalist, maybe. And the Mesmer, it's definitely, it's not something you're just going to jump into, really. It takes a little bit. I mean, you can jump into it, but it takes a little bit to master because you have all these different things. It's similar to the Elementalist in that you have all those different skills and different attunements to switch into. You have all these different toolkits that do different things. I mean, for instance, with the elixirs, not only can you press the elixir skill in the utility bar and you drink it and it does something to you, but you can toss them on the ground in an AoE and hit your teammates and it'll do something similar but maybe totally different. So you have all kinds of different skills and different skills upon skills almost coming into play with all those different abilities and whatnot. So it's kind of complicated. There's a lot of stuff to take in. It's just not as straightforward as maybe the Elementalist is with just straightforward, this is your attunement and these are your weapons. It's kind of like, oh, well, you have a bomb kit and it does all kinds of crazy stuff like this, but if you do use this with it, it does something like this, and just totally all over the place. So it takes a little, I would definitely put the learning curve up there with that. There's a lot of stuff to memorize. And
how do you approach it if you're a new player?
For new players, I would take some time to definitely, they switch the utility, so you have tiers now to unlock, but I think that's a good thing with the Engineer. I would take some time as you first get in and unlock stuff, just try out different abilities, see what you like, and then go from there with your build. Like, I wouldn't try to go in there first and be like, this is the way I want to play it. I would go in there a little bit more open first and kind of see exactly what things do, and then you'll see it coming together. Like, if this is what I'll pair elixirs with this, and I'll use this trait line to buff my elixirs and whatnot, and I think I'll use it with the shield or whatever. And you'll see things sort of come together, because it sounds like very convoluted, and like there's so many different things.
Yeah.
But once you sit down, you can start seeing like patterns form together, and you're like, all right, well, this will go well with this. Well, and it's just a lot of experimentation. I mean, it's an engineer. That's kind of what it is. He's like a scientist. You just kind of experiment and put things together and see how it works. So.
Can you explain how the weapons work a little bit? Like, you've got the rifle, and then you've got the pistols, and then you've got the pistol and the shield. So what's the different combinations? Is it so like the Elementalist? It opens up 5 new skills. So explain what the different skills are depending on what weapon you choose.
Well, like I said, the Engineer is big on controls and conditions. Your pistols, if you do dual pistols, are more of conditions, and if you say you have a pistol shield or you roll with a rifle, it's more of control. You have a few different a lot of control abilities on the rifle. I mean, if you watch some of the videos, people using rifles, the Engineer's going back and forth all over the place, creating distance, closing distance, and netting people and everything. There's a ton of control with the rifle, and pistol shield, because shield has a couple of great abilities to knock people back. As a magnetic shield ability, it shields you, and then you use it, and then you can blow people away and whatnot, and you can, and you have the conditions with the pistol that you can put on them as you're doing this and keeping them at bay. The rifle is definitely the longest range. It's actually shorter than I think all the other range classes, though. Like, it's not super long. I think its longest ability is 900 for that.
Wow.
And but it's a lot of control. A lot of control in the rifle. You have a net shot, so you can root somebody in place, and then you have a shot that basically creates distance that is pretty comical. It shoots you backwards as you shoot them, and it shoots them in another direction. So it just cleared a lot of distance between you and them. And then you have another jump shot, which is basically cheating for the jumping puzzles, but you have a jump shot that will shoot you right to the location you put it at. So it's all about, it's kind of a weird rifle dance, I would like to call it, because I seem to just be moving all over the place back and forth and trying to deal damage as I keep them controlled.
What's the life pool of the engineer?
The engineer wears medium armor, so it has a decent life pool. Obviously, that depends on how you spec it and whatnot. But it is definitely squishy enough. The thing with the engineer, again, comes down to it all the time, is control. There's a lot of videos out there, and even one of ours, we had that crazy duel we had. It's all about basically control. Once you master the engineer, you can almost lock down a point by yourself against 1, 2, maybe 3 opponents for a decent amount of time until your friends show up. With all the different control abilities you have, the kits, the rifle shots, all that stuff, bomb kits, whatever, rooting people in place, bouncing them around, you basically keep people busy for a long time. I'm sure Tristan will attest to that with that whole duel we had.
He's talking about a duel between a guardian.
Really shines.
He's talking about a duel between a guardian and an engineer, and it lasted for, I think, 15 minutes, and nobody died. Yeah.
Yep.
That's on YouTube. I'll tab me.
It was a long time. Yeah.
But it
got crazy. Obviously, it was beta, so things changed, but yeah, it was nuts.
So, what kind of a player is going to go? If your friends were like, man, I don't know what class to play, what profession to play, I'm not sure what to do. Who would you recommend? Like, what kind of a person would you recommend the engineer to?
I think somebody who, again, plays shaman, someone who likes support. I mean, again, you don't have to play it that way, obviously, but someone who likes support and supporting his teammates and basically controlling the battlefield. Someone who enjoys doing that, and kind of being, I guess, sort of behind the scenes, I would call it. You're kind of over there buffing your teammates, you putting conditions on your enemies and whatnot, and basically controlling opponents and controlling their movement and whatnot, and sort of controlling the flow of the battle, the way things go. You're also dealing damage, obviously, but I would say someone who likes to play a sort of support class. Not sort of, definitely support class.
All right. Do they have offensive abilities that are legitimate? Like, to me, whenever I fought an engineer, I always felt like I was beating on a big, like, Teflon rubber freaking horse saddle that was in the corner of a stable for 75 years that was shit on, and then the grass grew over it, and then shit on again, and the grass grew again, and then you pulled it out and it was really thick, and you were like, oh man, you're just hitting this thing, you can't get to the bottom. That kind of was the engineer feel for me. No, I'm serious. No, that's what they felt like to me. They always were very hard to hurt, but they never seemed to be doing.
That is one of the worst explanations I have ever heard. Worst explanation of hard battled of. My God, I don't even know what toughness is talking about on that one.
Toughness is good there.
It was leathered. Is that what you're going for with the saddle and the?
Yeah,
really?
worn and
battle worn.
The engineer, it never felt like it did a lot of damage to me. I never really felt threatened when I was fighting an engineer. Is that just because that's how they spec'd, or do they just not do a lot of damage?
Well, their damage isn't. Again, they're not like top damage dealers, I wouldn't say, but their damage is where they really shine is in conditions. Especially with their elixirs and their certain shots off the pistols, their poison volley. It's all about putting conditions on you and sort of wearing you down. So it's not straight up outright damage. I mean, the rifle is sort of like that. It has like a shotgun blast ability. It does a decent amount of damage, but you have to be close. And it's auto attack. Its first ability it does a decent amount of damage, but I think where it really shines is definitely the conditions, where it starts to wear you down and whatnot as it's fighting you. So it's not direct damage in your face like a thief or something like that, and I'm going to hit you really hard. It's, all right, keep following me. I'm going to stay alive, and I'm going to keep wearing you down, and then before you know it, you have like no health and you're falling on the ground. So
how does that
I think the condition damage is really.
How does that play in PvE and World v World? Because right now it sounds like it's a good build for SPVP because that's where you want to take people down over time. But like PvE, monsters, the longer they can hit you, the more damage you're taking. And in World v World, the range seems to be a problem.
Yeah, it's the elixir build actually does really well in PvE. Because you're constantly buffing yourself. I mean, one of your potions, you have a very significant might buff that you get from it, which would buff all your damage and everything. And in group play, especially with the dungeon that we did, I actually switched over to elixirs in the middle of that because what I was using wasn't working at all. Elixirs are great for dungeons because there's conditions being thrown around by the mobs and whatnot. So you're basically just helping to keep your team clean of conditions and whatnot and dealing out damage where you can. World v World is another story. When you're running around, like assaulting, say, supply camps, things like that, Elixir's not bad, but I tend to prefer a sort of build focusing on turrets and being able to throw turrets on the wall and shoot down at enemies and whatnot when you're defending stuff. That's where I think turrets sort of come into play more. I mean, obviously, again, disclaimer, you can use this stuff wherever, build however you want to build it, but I like to use turrets in World v World. I find them very effective for all sorts of things, defense and assault, whatnot.
Cool. Well, it's good to know that they have...
The healing turret on walls is pretty nice.
Oh, nice. That makes sense, yeah. So, I mean, it's good to know that they have have usability in all of it. He said the healing turret on walls is nice.
Yes, that's what I use exclusively for my heal, pretty much, is healing turret, because it's great for anything. Plop it down when you're assaulting something in the group, heals everybody up, stick it on the wall, throw, whatever, if you have elixirs, throw conditions, everybody basically... I like to think of myself as like the World v World combat medic, sort of, with crazy potions. Just kind of keep everybody buffed and try to give them little heals here and there while they're fighting and whatnot. That's the way I like to play it. So,
yeah.
So the pros of the engineer seem to be they have a lot of utility. They are great at supporting their team. They are also great at what else are they great
at? Condition damage.
Control.
Their condition damage, their control. They don't have as much burst as a lot of other classes. That's probably the biggest flaw of the engineer. But what I did when I played the engineer, that was probably my second class I played a bit. And just to put a different spectrum on this, I usually went with a heavy turret build, a heavy survivability build. I saw a lot of people doing that, and one of the big things with that is you're relying on your turrets a lot for your burst damage. If you have 3 of your turrets there doing damage and you're doing damage on top of it and your opponent is in that range, it's not going to last very long. You're going to mix in your control with that, do maybe your rifle net shot, your pistol sticky shot to keep someone in range of your turrets but out of range of you. That's probably the biggest utility for the engineer, is keeping... You have to position everything. It's not just you to your opponent, but it's you, your opponent, everything you have on the ground, and you have to predict exactly what's going to happen to be most beneficial. What I liked was doing defending a node in structured PvP, do 3 different turrets out of AoE range of each other, but being central to hit the node, so if anyone was going on the node, all 3 turrets would hit it. The survivability of the turrets can be a little bit low if you're not spec'd into the extra health or any of that stuff. And again, if you spec into the turrets, you're going to lose out on something else. So it's one of the better customizable builds of the engineer. You can do just about everything except massive burst damage. That's probably the simplest way to put the engineer. You can do everything except 2-second bursts.
Cool. So I mean, basically, you're good at the kiting. You're good at all the utility, and then the cons are you're limited in your range. You don't do burst damage, and there seems to be a higher learning curve on it because of the fact that it really doesn't fall into any archetype of other games out there, other MMOs or RPGs. You just you kind of have to pick it up and start learning it using your utilities. And the biggest pro, I think, and I don't think anybody can argue this one, is you get a fucking flamethrower. I mean, come on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When I played the engineer, all I know is that I hit that utility skill, flamethrower came out, flamethrower never went away. That's all I used. I didn't care if it was useful or
that
not.
Yeah.
It was there.
That was the first beta weekend for me. The whole weekend, just flamethrower.
It actually got really annoying when all you did was a flamethrower.
Sorry. My pyro can help myself.
On the class. Lack of burst on the class is a pro and a con. So it's a con because you can't burst, but it's also a pro because the people who have the insane burst damage, when you face them, you go, okay, I'm going to use my long cooldown abilities which make me really tough or make me really hard to do damage to. Like the Mesmer has skills which just go, I'm invulnerable to damage for like 3 seconds or something. And if you do that in the middle of their burst, there goes half their damage. You know, because you were invulnerable for half of that. But with the engineer, there's no one time where you can go, if I hit this now, I'll avoid his spike of damage. It's like, no, he's doing damage to you all the time. You might be dodging out of the way of some of the damage and things like that, but it's constant pressure, I think. So the pro to no burst damage is constant pressure, I think.
Under pressure. Well, cool. I think that sums up. I think that sums up the engineer pretty well. Now let's talk about our last profession for podcast number 7, part 1, and that will be the Guardian. The Guardian seems to be. The Guardian seems to be a very popular class to play. On all the polls that have been taken around the web, it seems to be one of the number 1 classes that people pick up, and I think the reason for that is I think the Guardian, at least from my perspective, is one of the easier professions to learn, or at least feel like you're doing it successfully right off the bat. You may not be. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can increase and make it better and get better and excel over someone else. But when you first start playing, the Guardian feels to me it gives you the most gratification that you're doing it right. You can pull massive amounts of mobs. You can do a lot of damage. You can equip all the weapons except for rifle, pistols, and a bow,
rifles, longbows,
and a pistol. So you can't do the ranged weapons, but you've got other weapons that give you range. The scepter gives you range. So the Guardian can equip a staff. The staff is more of a control weapon, and also a healing weapon. You can toss an orb out and heal your party members, or you can explode the orb. You can toss the orb out and do damage, or you can explode the orb and heal the people in the area. You can put down a wall that no one can pass. You can pretend that you're Gandalf and be like, none shall pass. Anyway, or you shall not pass before I get trolled. You can also do. They added a healing thing where you like throw yourself up in the air, and for 5 seconds you're buffing everyone in the area with might, and then at the end of it you burst 2,500 heals to everybody around you. It also has a speed buff so that you can run indefinitely if you like use the right utilities with it. Then you've got the Greatsword, which is a close-up weapon, which has the utility to close the gap. It has a utility so that you can grab the people around you and pull them in. And then you can whirlwind and just do tons of damage to them. You can also spike the ground and have condition damage being done to them. You can then spec that symbol on the ground to heal your party members. You also can leap with the Greatsword, so you can leap at your enemies. So there's lots of ways, since it's a majority melee class. They have put in a lot of ways that you can close the gap. So then you have the Scepter. The Scepter is more of a ranged. It's 1200 distance. It does like little orbs of light that shoot out. It also does an AoE type attack that throws down fists and stuff. And then it also can shackle someone into place, so you can close the gap once again. The Guardian is the defensive, going to change the tide of battle character. They are the support class to the max. You can spec into DPS, you can spec into all that stuff. I'll get to that in a second. Anyway, let's continue the weapons. So then you've got a shield. The shield does a bubble around you that knocks everyone back and rejects any damage coming in to anyone that's in the bubble. It lasts for a couple seconds. Then you've got a swipe with the shield that basically buffs all your team with boons. Then you've got what other weapon? So then you've got the hammer, the two-handed hammer. That's a sweet weapon. The idea of the hammer is to keep people close to you. It can put a ring around you. And what are you doing? You're just trying to make GIFs at this point. You just want me to make animated GIFs out of you. That's what is happening.
I'm so bored. I haven't talked at all. I am so bored. I hate this class so much.
It's a good class. So I'll let you talk. I'll let you talk about how you hate it in a second, but let me at least explain it to the people that want to know about it. Jeez.
You can do the cons, yeah.
Fuck, when you talk about crafting, I don't go.
Sorry, I'm so bored.
Shit.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
I know, but I don't vocally. Well, yeah, I do. All right, fuck it. Anyway, so you got the Guardian. You've got the hammer. It's about beating the crap out of people. It's a two-handed hammer. You get a cool-ass throw the guy in the air hit. You can stop people from getting out of the way by making a circle around them. They're about magic, and they're like a mixture of magic and steel. So you've got these steel weapons that have some sort of an aura of magic attached to them. Like you'll be running around and an Aegis shield will just pop up. And it's ethereal, and it's because you're using magic power. You're like the paladin. That's the best class to explain this to, is the paladin. And I think that's why a lot of people go towards it, is because they understand what a paladin is. However, there was a great picture example. They showed the Guardian, and they were like, this is the class. Then they showed what we expected, and they showed a picture of a paladin from WoW, and then they said what we got, and they had a picture of Iron Man. I mean, it's pretty much it's pretty accurate. I mean, it's way different than what you think it's going to be, and it's a lot of fun. It has a lot of utility. So then you've got the hammer. Then you can also have swords, and that's definitely close up, in your face, do a lot of DPS type of things, and it also has gap closers. So there's a ton of... Oh, and then you have a mace. You can also hold the mace. And that's about symbols on the ground. So if people are running through it, it affects them with conditions and boons. And there's so many... And then focus. You have a focus. I swear, like, you can have every weapon except for the ranged ones. The Guardian is jacked out in the amount of stuff that you get to do. Plus you are wearing heavy armor, so you can take a lot of damage. You are literally... You're the, is it the Ret Pal? No, not the Ret Pally. You're the other Pally of...
Protection.
The Protection Pally.
Protection.
Yeah, the Prop Pally of, wow, you can just take a beating. But there are classes, professions that are made to counter it. The Guardian is based on boons, on himself and on teammates. And you've got other professions that can take those boons and turn them into conditions, or turn them into damage, or, remove stuff. Necromancer is Necromancer is one of them. Yeah.
Oh, what's that? Corrupt boon.
I just remembered what the
conditions.
I just remembered you can also have the torch. I totally forgot about that, which has like this awesome freaking fire breath. Everything that you do with magic from the Guardian is blue. So it's blue magic, and so you get this blue fiery breath that pops out. It's just really cool. I mean, the Guardian has some of the coolest effects and some of the coolest animations, I think, in the game. But you are very, very limited to being supportive. I feel as though you can be a DPS Guardian, but don't expect to be invited to the group of SPVP, because they're going to be like, oh, you're a Guardian. I mean, the Guardian is the only profession in the game that I feel that you really are pigeonholed into a specific build or two when it comes to viability in SPVP. When it comes to PvE and World v World, you can play around. But when it comes to SPVP, I really do feel like if you want to play Guardian and you want to be in the groups that are, you know, competitive, you're going to have to build your character around a specific archetype. Damon, you're not agreeing with me?
I disagree.
Go for it.
Yeah, I disagree.
No.
Because you can do some just godly damage with the Guardian, depending on how you spec. I mean, and then you consider the sheer amount of control and just denial that you can have take place by playing the Guardian. You're not just pigeonholed into this. Oh, I'm supporting my group and I'm helping them out. Like
oh
this.
no, you're not doing crazy damage like a thief. You know, up close with daggers, you're doing a reasonable amount of damage as a Guardian. But it's over time, and the idea is that your life goes down over time. So like you're lasting longer, and if they stay in the area fighting you, and it's just 1-on-1, you'll probably win. But if it's 2-on-1, you're just there to hang out and delay the inevitable.
It's the melee version of the engineer. I mean, the engineer doesn't have crazy spike damage, but has a lot of survivability, has a lot of control, has a lot of I can survive longer than you can kind of tricks. The Guardian's like the melee version of that, is sort of the way I consider it. They can survive a lot of damage. They can avoid and control a lot of situations, and they can purely outlast you. I mean, you didn't even talk about like the virtues which are the class mechanic or the profession mechanic of the Guardian that no one else gets, where you've got that the one which every 5 attacks you do burning damage. You give them a burning debuff.
So explain what those are before you explain what they do, just so that we stay on the same page.
You got the Guardian profession has 3 unique abilities, which are their class or profession abilities. Just like all the professions have their own unique things, and they're called virtues. And there are 3 virtues. I can't remember the names off the top of my head, but one of them does burning. They're passive buffs that just sit on you all the time unless you explode them, and I'll talk about that in a second. But they'll just sit on you the whole time, and they just give you a passive effect. So the first one is every 5 attacks you put a stack of burning onto your opponent, so they start taking a bit of damage over time, and that's every 5 attacks that will just automatically trigger. You don't have to do anything, it just happens. You've got one which is every 5 or 10 seconds you have Tristan talked about this sort of magical shield, the Aegis that appears on you, that blocks an attack, so it'll just completely deny some damage every few seconds that comes up. And then you've got the third one, which gives you passive health regeneration, just constantly. It's just there. Now, what you can do with these virtues is you can sort of you can trigger the virtue for a bigger effect that lasts for a short period of time, and then that virtue goes on cooldown. You've got to wait for it to come off cooldown before the passive effect reappears. So in the case of the burning attack, if you trigger that, you and all of the friends near you, their next attack causes a really big burning effect to appear on your opponent. And all of your friends get that. Not just the Guardian, everyone gets that. So you can suddenly trigger this big spike of damage through conditions, through suddenly all of your friends just go, rah, have some burning. And then that guy goes, well, hang on, where did all this burning come from? But then you don't get your passive every 5 attacks gives you burning for about 20 seconds until that virtue comes off cooldown. You've got the Aegis where you can go, oh, okay, they're about to pull out some big spike of damage. They're going, they're summoning rains of fire or whatever. And you can go, okay, I'll trigger my Aegis ability, and suddenly all of my friends have the Aegis ability. So they'll all block some damage. But then it goes on cooldown, and you've got to wait for it to come back before you get the passive back. So you can, and then with the regeneration, with the same thing, you can give your allies some health regen at the cost of you won't have your passive regen for a little while until it comes back off cooldown. So you've got these 3 abilities which sort of allow the Guardian by accident basically to support even while you're running around dishing out crazy massive damage with a sword and a torch in your hand or something like that.
Yeah, and the Guardian can weapon swap. So the last 2 professions we talked about could not weapon swap, and this one can. And in place of like where the Elementalist, you would hit F1, F2, F3, F4. Those are the default keys for like swapping attunements. What he's talking about is the F1 through 3 for those passives, and then activating them. Bruce, you're dying to just go at it, man. So I'm gonna let you, man. Go ahead.
You know what? I'm just gonna say this right out. I hate playing the Guardian class. I always thought Thief was gonna be the class I hate, and I hate it so much. The Guardian is the only class I could not kill at all, ever. And I hate all of you Guardians for playing it, because I am pissed for never being able to fucking kill you guys. I'm serious. I always had to play that stalemate game for the Guardian for so long and be like, okay, is he going to get a teammate to show up first, or am I going to get a teammate to show up first to 2v1 us? I hate that mechanic so much. I'm so frustrated with the Guardian. It takes forever to kill them. It does. And I find them boring to play. I do not enjoy it.
What? Okay, but explain. What do you find? What do you find boring about them? What's boring to play?
I tried so hard because I did enjoy the Paladin in WoW. I did enjoy the heavy armor clerics and the EverQuest and all. I liked that style of gameplay, but something about the Guardian just does not mix with me. That scepter ability for the range just feels out of class for me. All the mace abilities do feel a little bit more in class, the shield abilities and all that stuff, but like the torch, really? It just seems kind of gimmicky. A lot of the stuff feels gimmicky. I do like the aura system that they have for the Zeals, or whatever they call it, the F1 through 3. I apologize for not getting the terminology correct, thank you. I just hate the class so much. I don't even want to put the effort into learning it. It's just, I'm sorry, I'm getting all flustered now, because now I'm just filled with the rage of just the structured PvP Guardian of, you will never kill me and I will stall the frick out of you.
It's true. Hey, you know what? You're not full of shit. Yeah. That's the thing. And when I first played the Guardian, I played it and I was like, this is my main, man. This class feels awesome. I loved it. Like, I was like, wow, I can hold out against 2 or 3 people. I can just dominate in PvE. I can pull 25 mobs on myself and just annihilate them. I can hold off like towns all on my own. It was insane what you could do. And then I got to World v World. And I was like, wow, I feel ridiculously stupid right now. Like, what should I be doing? I'm on defense on a wall, and I'm just like, there's nothing for me to do. I could jump down there, and I suppose I could, like, fuck with them and be like, oh, okay, kill me, jump back in the gate. But that's all I'd be doing is, like, I'd be doing the banana dance outside, It's
trolling.
Like, they did address it with making the range on the scepter longer with both the attacks.
Yeah.
But I still feel like if you are not down on the ground with 6 of your buddies on Mumble, which we did this once, and we pushed over a bridge through a cave and took them out because of one. I was doing these defensive spells that literally made it so none of their attacks could hit us. And with a team, that feels absolutely amazing. You feel unstoppable as a Guardian. You feel like you are absolutely the most useful teammate on the face of the earth. But if you want to then turn around and do some damage versus 10 or 15 people, the Guardian is a little bit different in that regards. And I think I like it, but I don't like it in the fact that ArenaNet said, all professions will be able to play all roles. Support, DPS. Wait, someone. What are the 3 roles? So I don't get it wrong again.
Support, damage control.
Thank you. Support, damage control.
Damage control.
And I feel like in World v World, specifically to the Guardian, you are very, very limited in what you can choose. The staff isn't what you would think. You know, it doesn't. You're not going to be raining blue flame of death on people. You literally are limited to scepter, and the focus. They increase the range on the focus too, but it's so hard to line up some of those shots. And a weird thing is that like your protection bubbles don't protect against catapults and siege weapons, so you can't take a hit for that, which is kind of lame. But I suppose you could counter that with the idea that your elite can heal, and you can literally keep people up way longer than they could. You have spirit weapons that can, delegate damage to people, that can knock people down, that can take damage from you, defend you. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can use. You have utility things that can put flame on the ground, and so anybody walking through it is screwed. You can put flame on the ground, and anybody who shoots through it gets extra stuff. All of your abilities create combo fields of some sort. So either you're removing boons or you're adding conditions to people. I don't actually think... No, you're not adding conditions. I think you're mostly removing boons with your default weapon skills. And if somebody shoots through it or walks through it, they've just helped themselves. So they're very, very defensive. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I really do feel like... And that's why in the beginning of this I said, I think a lot of people when they pick up the Guardian, they're going to be like, man, I feel badass and overpowered and all that stuff. And it not necessarily because they're overpowered, because I wouldn't say they are. I think they're counterable. I do think, though, that because they have a bigger life pool and because they can take 2 people on at once and stay there, and if they are using their utilities right, just stay alive, not necessarily kill those 2 people. I mean, you can, but it takes work. But stay alive and cause the game to be held up a little bit on a point, specifically in SPVP, then you're going to feel more powerful than, say, an Ellie with daggers that gets 1 shot. So that's my opinion on the class.
Oh, it's completely true. I mean, like I said before, my frustration, I mean, they are an amazing defensive build support class. You can go into an attack route, but a lot of people will not expect you to do that because you won't be as good as some of the other classes, but they really do shine in that defensive support build.
If you have a team, you are going to feel absolutely awesome. I ran my Guardian in the Ascalonian Catacombs. I was lucky to get it up to level 30. And to be honest, that's when I made the change. That's when I switched out, and I said, no more Guardian for me. Your spells that make you feel super powerful... hold on, I want to backtrack for a second. The reason I think your spells make you feel super powerful is because they're straightforward spells. You get a bubble that shields you from protection, and it's called something, shield of bubble protection. You know what I mean? Like, it's straightforward. It's like, this shield protects you from damage, get in it. And so you cast it, it makes a giant blue bubble, and everybody around goes, oh, that's the giant blue bubble that protects me from damage. Let's go in it. It's not like some of the other spells where, like, you're a Mesmer and you get, like, a glamour skill or something, and you're like, what the fuck is glamour? Am I putting an earring on or something? Like, what's going on? Like, it's not as straightforward. All the Guardian skills are in your face. Blue fire on the ground, big-ass spirit weapons, floating over your head. So someone coming in is going to be like, I get it, this hammer does that. I get it, that bubble protects me from this. Oh, a big wall? I guess that reflects all the damage. So it's much clearer for someone jumping into the game to understand the skills in front of them, I think. It will take a lot more, a lot more finesse to really be good at that class. But I don't remember what the first thing I was talking about was. That's the problem now. I backtracked, and now I don't know where I was going. No, but
I think you've got an interesting thing.
Go ahead.
No, with the three professions that we looked at, the Elementalist, the Engineer, and the Guardian, they each sort of exemplify what I think is a really core philosophy for ArenaNet with this game, in that they want to make an MMO that is different, that does things differently. So you've got, it's about having an answer for everything and being versatile. It's, with things like the Elementalist, it's about being active as well as reactive in combat with things like the Engineer, but it's also really about, this game is a team game.
Yes.
It is a game to play with people, and if there's a profession in this game that demonstrates that clearly, it's the Guardian. The Guardian is your best friend on that battlefield.
Yeah.
He is the guy who's going to keep you alive. He's going to be the guy that people are going to want to kill because he's annoying as hell. He's the guy who's reflecting damage. He's the guy that's giving you buffs. He's the guy that's setting people on fire. It's. I think really, and I think it's sort of by accident, we chose these three professions that really sort of touch on sort of core reasons why this game is getting such a massive fan base. Is that it's just doing something that's so different.
No, I agree, and that
really
was,
sort of
and I think that's
demonstrate
where the Guardian fell a little short with me when it came to doing like the Ascalonian Catacombs. When you run into that dungeon, and you realize that those spells that did a lot of damage in PvP no longer really are doing a lot of damage, and then you look at your bars and I had to reset up all my utilities. I wasn't using, which was great. Don't get me wrong. This is awesome. I'm not bitching. I'm saying this was really cool that I had to actually change things out and try different things. Like I had to try different shouts. I had to try different defensive things. I had to try different stuff that would help my team, because if I didn't, I felt as though as a Guardian in a PvE, I felt as though obviously I couldn't heal through the damage that these giant monsters, these elite monsters did. And so I couldn't keep up a team versus like outdoor PvE where I could help out a little more with a burst heal. But I did feel as though the damage was a lot harder to dish out as a Guardian, because you had to be up in the face of these mobs, and everybody else could be like 50 feet back. You know what I mean? In real life terms, 120, 1,200 meters back in game terms, and they could be nuking the crap out of this thing and dodging and moving, and because you're kiting these monsters because there's no tank. And as the Guardian, immediately when you get up front in front of someone's face, it's harder for your brain to go, I still have to dodge even though I'm standing in front of this thing, because it doesn't make sense for you to go, I'm hitting, oh, dodge backwards. It's like, wait, that doesn't, I need to do the damage, but you need to get the fuck out if that thing is starting to do some AoE. And I feel as though as a Guardian, you are given these really powerful support abilities at the expense of you have to be up in the face of everyone you fight. End of story. Really, you just feel like you're unstoppable team. But it doesn't make you feel... I used to play Age of Conan, and as a bear shaman, you had these heals, and you had to be up in front and healing and attacking. And everybody would thank you when you were done. Literally, it was the one healing class I ever played where they said, thank you so much, because your heals were like clutch. The Guardian has this opposite effect, where it makes the team go, good job, guys, to everyone. Because we all feel badass when we're running together like that, because I'm comboing off of you, you're protecting me, and I get more time to do this, and then I can get myself heal up by jumping into your bubble, but then you're out of skills, so then I can maybe give you, like, blah, blah, blah. And so you definitely play off each other more when you're using the different aspects of these professions together. So put a Guardian in your team is what we're saying. That's the only weird thing about the Guardian. Is that...
aspect of the game, I think that...
Oh, okay. The weird thing is that it feels weird that you have to... The Guardian is one of the only professions that I feel have to be in a group. I feel like if you want to be successful, you should have a Guardian in your group. because they can really change they can turn the tides.
I don't think I've seen a pre-made SPVP group without a Guardian yet. I think that's probably the safest thing to say.
It's a safe
bet. There's going to be something. Something's going to either change, or this class is just going to be amazing in group play forever. That's
forever. Just to annoy us.
Yeah.
So the kind of person that you should be to play a Guardian is someone that likes to support their team, likes to be able to get right up in the face of everyone. Literally, if you see a battle of 4 and you have 2, go in there and cause problems. And a class that likes to mix a little bit of magic with every weapon in the game. Like, you have every weapon in the game, so if you want to be able to equip everything and try it all out and wear heavy armor, that is the profession for you. So, why do you think you wouldn't play the Guardian?
If you want to be that finishing blow player, if you want to be that ganky, high damage, raffle stomping, that's definitely the anti-Guardian right there. Is the stereotypical, 2-second burst people, the thief, the elementalist, those people that really want to be the I want to kill everything and I want to kill everything right away. The Guardian's definitely more of a laid back, control, support. You're better off supporting your buddy than going off into battle by yourself. The people that really want to be solo players should not be playing a Guardian by any means.
Well,
because PvE, the Guardian is one of the most successful soloers, I think, in the entire game.
Really?
I think he can just pull everything and live.
That's just my limited knowledge and experience then of just pure hatred for the class profession.
Seriously, the PvE on a Guardian is probably the most solo friendly other than the Ranger because you have a pet.
Okay. I didn't feel it. Maybe I wasn't playing it correctly. Maybe I didn't play it long enough to fully feel that.
Doing it wrong.
I probably am. I'm not going to deny that. But when I was reading stuff, and I know a lot of my knowledge not through experience, but through reading and posting and all this other stuff. So it seemed a little off. But I'm glad to hear that with the experience, you do actually feel viable solo PvE. That actually does help me appreciate the class a little more, even though I'll never play it.
You don't feel like you're overpowered. I mean, you do feel overpowered, but I think that's good that every profession I've played feels overpowered in some way or another. And that's the sign of a good profession. But you're not just going to be sitting there and, pulling 20 mobs and clicking 2 buttons and being like, okay, I'm good. No, you're going to be popping utilities. You're going to be running the fuck away. You're going to be dodging. You're going to be doing everything you can to make sure that you stay alive, because your health will go down. And you have to keep, alive. It will go down slower, I think, than the other professions, but and it gives you a little more leeway, and you won't die as much. But you definitely need to still pay attention, and know your class, know your profession. I swear to God, the amount of times I said class and then profession, ArenaNet, just change it. God. Who cares?
No, you change.
Oh, God. I don't think I'll ever get it right.
It is annoying.
Yeah, probably not.
Anything else that you want to add about the Guardian? Anybody? No?
I see a lot of people in PvE, in like the dynamic events that take place. I spent a bit of time playing the Guardian, and I'd it's like, oh, cool, it's a dynamic event, and I'd run in there, and then suddenly I'd realize that there's like 10 other people just following me around doing this dynamic event, because they're like, I want to stay with the Guardian because he gives me cool stuff. He makes me better at what I do because he's around. And the Guardian's kind of like the enabler, I guess. He gives you the breathing space to be awesome.
No, it's true. When a Guardian charges in World v World, you want to charge with that Guardian. He's the one that leads the charge, and that's a lot of fun. Yeah. However, often and many times you will see the lone guardian charge in, and everybody else is like, "What's he doing?" And then the guardian's all like, "Hey, I popped a bubble! Shit!"
How many times did you do that?
So, but I think that's why they made the spell so prominently in your face blue, is so that you know if there's a defense shield up or there's a defense bubble up or something that you can push forward and be okay. So it kind of helps the battle to move forward, which is nice. Yeah. So, hey, that about wraps it up for our podcast about professions. Next week we're going to be talking... We couldn't fit all the professions into one podcast, obviously. And we are going to be talking about the Mesmer, the Necromancer, and the Warrior. So, completely different professions. And like I was saying before, I changed over from the Guardian in Beta Weekend 2 to the Mesmer. So, hopefully I'll be able to give you some cool insight on that. I know Damien has played a lot of the Necro. John has also played the Necro, so have I. Bruce, have you played the Necro?
No. Well, yes, but no. Another discussion for next week.
You hate
Another
Necro
hatred discussion.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
That's what I was expecting. He was waiting for another rage.
Yeah, so Bruce is our rager, and but yeah, thanks for watching. Of course, we've probably got some stuff wrong. Yeah, until we get to the Ranger, Bruce is gonna hate everything. But his beard brings happiness to all, so he must be here. But
Beard
no,
is mandatory.
but it's it's important for everybody to understand. We are not, obviously, all this is our opinions. This is from our playtime. This is from our theory crafting. None of this stuff is necessarily, verbatim. But hopefully we're giving you a good idea of, hey, I'm looking at these different types of professions. I'm not sure which one to pick. This is my play style. And hopefully this will help you to really hone in on what you should try first. Honestly, I tried every single profession, and that's how I picked. But hopefully this will help you to organize them in, an order that you want to play in.
Narrow it down a little bit.
Yeah. So, thank you for watching. This has been alttabme.com, podcast number 7, part 1. We will see you next week for part 2 at 5:15 p.m. Eastern, live at alttabme.com/live, which will then be published to YouTube on Wednesday. See you guys next time.